Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're taking a look at part 1 of Dragon's Rising Season 3. This is the first Ninjago content released since October, and the build-up to it has been pretty exciting. Now we have all the episodes out, and having watched them all now, I can say that this was a pretty solid batch of episodes, but probably not the best we've seen from Dragon's Rising. And so yeah, let's get into the review. The overall premise is that the Forbidden Five, the big bad of Season 2, are now working to release an even bigger bad, the Chaos Dragon, Thunderfang. And so the very first scene of the season shows the backstory of Thunderfang and the big fight that took place to defeat him. I thought this was a really cool flashback, and the overall backstory of Thunderfang's character is so interesting. I love the idea of having a dragon as a villain for the first time in this show. The first episode is slow, but also good. It gets the ball rolling on these stories, but a big focus here is the absence of Eren, and we get to see how the ninja team feels about that. I think that's portrayed well, and beyond that, I don't have too much to say about these first few episodes. They're good, they're pretty slow as well, but generally that is true of a lot of Ninjago seasons, and so it's not an issue unique to Season 3. We do see a lot of the main characters and their interactions in the first 3 episodes. It's really nice to see Frack as a member of the ninja team and how he interacts with the other characters, but we don't see much of the villains here. The Forbidden Five appear at the end of Episode 1 and the end of Episode 3, which is also when Thunderfang appears, but not really besides then. At least in these first 3 episodes. A villain who we do get to see is Ross, and the most interesting part of these first few episodes is definitely Ross and Eren's journey, which eventually takes them into the Departed Realm. Episode 3 was one of my favorite episodes of this season. It took a lot of time and focus to explain a concept that had, until now, been a mystery. The concept of Ninjago's afterlife merging with the real world was always kind of a weird idea, but I think the show explains it decently well. The idea is that the Cursed Realm and Departed Realm have combined and are now kind of just like an intermediate point for departed souls who then go on to something else. What that something else isn't ever explained, and I like that because it models the real world. The Spectral Lands also look beautiful visually, and so I think they did a really good job here. Eren is here because he has to get some potion to help heal Ross, and he's guided by none other than Moro. Moro's inclusion and return to the show just feels really well done. It feels very natural. It doesn't feel like something that's forced, and this idea of him being a guide for departed souls is very in line with this character. I love the idea of him doing this and refusing to pass on just to atone for his past mistakes. And his characterization, how noble he feels, I think works very well. So yeah, Moro's good, the Departed Realm is explained. They did a good job with this episode. I also like Thunderfang's introduction. I think it was a pretty cool scene. And his voice has honestly grown on me quite a bit. I like that the first realm is present in this season, and we get to see a new tribe. The Dragonians, they have pretty cool designs. I also love the Forbidden Five's designs, and the fact that they can just fly without wings just magically is so cool. Episode 4 focuses on Zane, who ends up fighting Rapted and his minions, and this is also where Pixel comes back and makes her debut in this series. Pixel's a pretty cool character, it's really nice to see her back, and the train action scene in this episode was really fun to watch. I do have some concerns with Zane in this season. There was some indication that Zane would have a bigger role in the season. He was on the box art, he appeared a decent amount in promotional material, and he certainly does have screen time, but that hasn't really fixed the issues with this character. Zane and Pixel have some really nice scenes together, and that's great and all, but Zane just does not have any deeper story in this season. And I don't know, I was hoping that this season would change things for him. His dialogue still feels very robotic, and he has another fake-out death. This one even uses his actual death music from Season 3, which I always hate when the show does that. This season gave Zane important stuff to do, and that is a contrast to how he was in Seasons 1 and 2. So the fact that his character isn't much better here suggests a deeper, more fundamental issue with the way the writers are handling him. Moving on to a new topic, I forgot to discuss this season's intro. It's gotten somewhat of a mixed reception because it uses a remix of We Rise, but personally, I think this intro is pretty good. It's definitely grown on me. The remix, I think, is decent, and the visuals are perfectly fine. So really no issues there. I think it's pretty good, and the scene of them fighting Thunderfang is pretty cool. Also, towards the middle of the season, we learn about the prismatic blades, which are the collectibles for the season. I like the concept behind these, and that you can use them to see souls. The location of these blades seems to have no rhyme or reason to it. They just kind of appear in random locations. For example, one of them just appears on Dorama's puppet, without any explanation. So, I don't know, I found that to be a bit weird, sort of an afterthought in this season. And so we also see the Forbidden Five going after the ninja to get these blades, so there's some cool fight scenes there. The Forbidden Five's powers, I think, are pretty cool for the most part. Kerr has the power of decay. This one in particular I thought was great, and we see its consequences as well. Basically, she could just age people up and give them this sort of sickness. Drakes has the power of swarm. Basically, he could just summon insects. It's cooler than it sounds, I think. Zark has the power of misfortune, which unfortunately we don't really see too much in the show, I feel like. Noct has brute force, which is exactly what it sounds like. And Rox, we never see her power, strangely enough. The Forbidden Five have fantastic designs, and the fight scenes against the ninja are pretty good. Generally, they're pretty intimidating antagonists, but they feel so much weaker compared to how they were built up in Season 2. In particular, Zark contributes nothing towards the team. He gets beat up by the ninja and just flees. The Forbidden Five were built up as realm conquerors, and yet in this season they just feel like average Ninjago villains. It doesn't help that in Season 2, they were this big bad threat that Ross was working to release, and now here in Season 3, they're the ones working to release an even bigger threat. Their role in the overall story just feels kind of intermediate, and it's as if they don't have their own proper place in Dragon's Rising. Besides that, they don't really have any interesting character traits, they're just kind of generic evil villains, and their motivations just don't feel properly fleshed out. Sure, they want Thunderfang to give them more power, but for what? What's stopping them from conquering the realms right now? Also, them getting betrayed by Thunderfang at the end, most predictable thing ever. I'm not really sure how these five didn't see it coming. These guys basically just exist to release Thunderfang, and unlike Ross in Season 2, they didn't really seem to have any grand plan with them. The Forbidden Five are probably Dragon's Rising's weakest villains yet. They do have good moments here and there. I thought Rox was pretty fun usually, but as a whole, I was a little disappointed. I thought they could have been done better. And I do think they'll be back in Part 2 as souls or something, but that remains to be seen, of course. Moving on to a more positive note, we do get to see Ninjago and Aracord this season. It's really cool to see that this realm is continuing to come back. I think it's a great idea, and I'm glad the show is continuing to move that story along. I also want to discuss Ross and Aaron's dynamic. It's a big part of the season, and is something that I thought was fantastic. During these middle episodes, we see them journey across the Merged Lands to find Aaron's parents, and eventually we find out that they're actually dead. The scene where he sees their tombstones is super emotional, and I love how Aaron's guiding motivation here is still finding his parents. All of his actions are guided by that one desire. Even though his parents are dead, the new goal now is to bring them back by undoing the merge. And this is a great case of Ross's manipulation, especially because we learn at the very end of the season that Aaron's parents are actually alive. I thought Ross was fantastic in this season. He's a better villain than the actual villains of the season. I love how, as a teacher to Aaron, he is such a contrast from Lloyd. He's just so much more demanding and harsh, and he's still trying to instill these ideas of strength and anger in Aaron. It is a fantastic dynamic. I was so looking forward to it, and it really did deliver. And I love how Aaron has to deal with the consequences of being associated with Ross. For example, the Matriarch Dragon's tribe, they offer their help to him, but they also want to take Ross captive. And so in the end, Aaron chooses Ross over the dragons. Now to talk about Aaron specifically, he is just phenomenal in Season 3. A particular focus is his reconciliation with Sora, which I thought was just so beautifully done. They ended Season 2 on rocky terms, but in this season we get to learn the origin of their friendship, and those flashbacks were all great to watch. I love the scene where they were hanging from the grappling hook on the tree. This was such a beautifully shot scene. And after they reconcile, Sora teaches Aaron that he doesn't have to draw his power from anger, but instead positive sources like love. The show does a great job of conveying how much these two mean to each other, and in the final episode, Aaron is able to successfully do object ninjutsu by drawing on memories of his friendship with Sora and the other ninja. This was great character development for Aaron. We see him leave some of his bitterness behind and reject one of Ross's key teachings. But despite all this, Aaron still chooses to stick with Ross, believing in his ability to bring his parents back. Aaron is one of the most complex characters this show has had, and we never saw this level of complexity in the previous series. You can't really classify him as an evil ninja, because at heart he is still a good person, but at the same time he is also choosing to stick with Ross, who is obviously a villain. Aaron is essentially a misguided character who's willing to do and overlook bad things, but as a person he is still a good person, and he's just kind of figuring a lot of stuff out. Ross was great too, as I've said. He's kind of more of a long-term threat at this point, and I think that kind of villain is really something that Ninjago had needed for a while, and we finally have one in him. We get to learn a lot of new information through him. We learned that his hammer is actually a Source Dragon icon, and we also learned that he's going to be headed to the Underworld in Part 2 to create more dragon icons. This season does reveal new information here and there, and it's really exciting whenever it happens. I also love Sora this season and how we see her deal with her guilt for driving Aaron away. and ultimately how she uplifts him in the final episodes too. I think the decision to have her join Ross and Eren in the final episode was definitely a good decision, and it really shows their character growth, and how she doesn't want to lose Eren again. But yeah, just to sum it up, Ross, Eren, and Sora, all highlights of this season. And I guess I should talk more about the final battle. Thunderfang is free now, and he's a cool villain. I've discussed him a bit already, but I think they're setting him up as a very big threat here. His ability to basically consume souls is so good. I do wish we'd seen him more in the season, because he's just kind of not really present until the final episode, but I do think what we saw of him was very good. Eren defeats him by throwing the Departed Realm potion, which allows the souls he's consumed to move on, and kills Thunderfang in the process. I think this is highly questionable and just feels too easy, but the idea is there and, it's okay. The final scene of the season is great. Basically, Thunderfang arrives in the Departed Realm, and he immediately kills Moro, and basically says anything is possible in the afterlife. I think this is a super cool setup for part 2, where we'll likely see Thunderfang continue to gather souls in the Spectral Lands. As for some other stuff I haven't discussed yet, Wildfire's story here is that she's trying to cure Roby of his decaying sickness. It's a fine side story. It's not the most interesting thing, and I don't have much more to say about it, but it's fine enough. Cole isn't really in this season, which I think is also fine. That's just the way the show works. Kai and Nia have a lot of screen time together. It's great to see. And Lloyd, this is probably his smallest role in a while, which is also fine too. The last big thing I haven't discussed yet is, of course, Jay. Jay himself, I think, is great. I love how he's a mercenary this season, and I think it's a super cool role for him. We basically just see him chasing after Ross for a lot of the season, and there's a lot of good fight scenes from that too. Yeah, I think Jay himself is fine. What I have more of an issue with is the search for Jay feels very disconnected. The Ninja are searching hard for Jay, and the show conveys that pretty well. It's just that the efforts the Ninja take don't really seem to lead anywhere. In the first episode, the Ninja get captured by some lightning tides, who then put up a wanted poster. You'd think maybe they hire Jay and he goes after the Ninja. That would feel pretty natural. But no, that's not what happens, and that feels like an obvious missed opportunity. In episode 3, the Ninja go to the arcade to beat Jay's high score and get him out of hiding. Jay ends up remotely playing the game, and this whole subplot doesn't go anywhere. After this, the search for Jay gets totally sidelined, and they only find him because he's tracking Ross, and he ends up arriving at the final battle. This, of course, is a complete coincidence to the Ninja, and has nothing to do with their previous efforts. The search for Jay is just very flawed, and very fragmented. It happens at the beginning, gets pushed to the side in the middle episodes, and then it just kind of ends. There's no in-between or progression here. Also, Jay shattering his soul in the previous season was made out to be a much bigger deal than it actually was in this season. It has no ramifications here. Now, it is nice that Jay's story was pushed forward. He is back on the team, and there's more to do with him in part 2. I'm looking forward to how he's reintegrated into the team, but his story in part 1 just kind of happened without any real progression, and I was disappointed with the way it was done. Moving on to some final thoughts, the overall structure of Dragons Rising is starting to become repetitive, and the sequence of events in Season 3 Part 1 is very similar to Season 2 Part 1. Just the way both parts end off, the villains and their goals and what they're doing, it's all just really similar. Next year when we get Season 4 Part 1, I really hope they shake things up, because this general structure is getting very stale. Also, the whole Part 1, Part 2 thing, I don't like that these two parts are going to feel so different. This was also the case for Season 2, and strangely enough, it was not a problem in Season 1. But it does look like it's going to be the case in Season 3, and I'm really not a fan of the tonal shift. Another concern is that there was a lot of stuff in this season that just wasn't really explained. I've already discussed the prismatic blades and their locations, as well as the Forbidden Five's motivations, but another big thing this season doesn't discuss much is the Forbidden Five's powers themselves. The season never explores how Thunderfang empowered the Forbidden Five, it just kind of says that he did. And the Forbidden Five's powers themselves are actually never said on screen. It's just info that we've gotten from outside material. I think a broader theme of the season is that it just kind of feels like it's trying to do a lot, there's a ton of stuff going on, and it misses the mark in certain areas. But there is stuff it does really, really well. Eren, Sora, and Ross continue to be excellent characters. We do learn a lot about the Merged Realms, new information, which I thought was very exciting too. And Thunderfang is set up as a really interesting threat, moving forward into Part 2. All things considered, I think this is probably the weakest part of Dragons Rising yet, but that's not really saying much because the last 2 seasons were also some of Ninjago's best. At the end of the day, I did enjoy this part for sure. I thought it was pretty good, and I thought it was a solid batch of episodes, but also it wasn't Dragons Rising's best. but I still thought it was good. Season 3, Part 1 gets an 8 out of 10 for me. It was a good but not phenomenal season. It's the first time in a while we've had one of these, but this part alone at least definitely ranks among the better Ninjago seasons, and I think Part 2 is going to be really exciting as well. I'll be super excited for that, and I look forward to seeing how Dragons Rising's story continues. And yeah, that'll do it. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, please leave a like, subscribe, share with anyone and everyone you know, and share your thoughts on Season 3, Part 1 below, and I'll see you guys next time.